mountain through and through. I had the windproof and waterproof jacket, but everything aside from that was wrong. And I researched. I became an expert on socks.
Great.
I know you like you're darn tough.
Yeah.
But I know all kinds of socks now, and I have like 5 varieties depending on the conditions. I go for them. Always my sock changes. You also a big fan of sock changes. And
Yep.
committing to sock changes in the winter is very important because it does give you some extra life. And I became a fan to the point that I think is my favorite thing now. It's winter hiking.
That's great. What caught me into winter hiking was pictures. So seeing that like fluffy Dr. Seuss style snow up on top of the summits was just like, okay, I have to see that with my own eyes. And then all it took was one trip up, and yeah, that was that for me. Yeah, it's a totally different animal, and props to you for not letting the winter scare you away, but deciding, okay, now it's time to do the next
I was
chapter.
I was scared. My friend Ashley, she dragged me to Dick's, and I remember I had all my layers on. I had everything they could possibly have on at the beginning of the hike. Big mistake, right? You should start light and add the layers as you go. So start cold
Yeah,
um
be bold and start
and you
cold.
be both start cold, and you can add the layers as you start reaching altitude. So I didn't do that. And 5 minutes in, I'm sweating so much. So I start feeling like a banana. And then I realized, oh my God, do you understand? I did not know you could sweat in 19 degrees.
Hmm.
I didn't even think it was possible. I was always so afraid of the cold. And I met one other hiker, African American hiker. We met on top of Seymour, actually, no, of Seward. And I'm the only Latina hiker that I know that did the 46er. I actually went back to the historian's office, which you can do online. I spent 3 days reading all of the names in the 46er logs. And I only identified a handful of Latina names in there, and none of those names were Brazilian. So I think I'm the first
Sure.
Brazilian to ever finish the journey,
Very
but
cool.
I'm the only Latina that I know that owns snowshoes and went to the snow. So I started asking around why, and it is a cultural block. We really believe it's not our place. It's not something we are built for, that we can do it. And I spoke a lot with this fellow hiker. About this experience that he has of being black and being a winter hiker. He finished his winter 46er this year as well, and he doesn't have any friends that does that, that can relate to that, and his family thinks it's absolutely nuts. So when you have that ethnic element to it, that cultural element to it, it's a lonely place to be because you're not really understood by your family or your friends of the same nationality or same ethnicity. But you need to allow yourself to become who you're meant to be. Like, I'm Brazilian, but it doesn't mean that I have to be a specific kind of Brazilian. So I'm the Brazilian with snowshoes.
I love it. I love that. Sounds like that good title of a book.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that's a good title of a book. And the thing about winter is that then because I had the handicap, I haven't been exposed as a little kid. My parents didn't bring me skiing. My first time I skied was 4 years ago, so I had to really learn all the mechanics of snow and winter, and how to be warm, how to keep myself warm. The sad part about winter hiking, James, that you can't sit for like a half an hour break, right?
Hmm.
At Allen, I think my total stop time was 15 minutes for the entire hike. So yeah, that's the sad part. But the good part is that you see the mountains a completely different way. The view is completely different. The feeling is completely different. I I love the challenge that it poses. And I think the craziest memory I had, in my whole 46 journey, there were only two moments that I went like, oh shit. One was sheer beauty. The one that was about sheer beauty was Gothics in the winter. I know people like Gothics in the summer, that's fine. But if you go to Gothics in the winter, you are like in this IMAX movie and you are the star of that movie. and it's everything is around you. It's like, you're in the sun, and all the plants are revolving around you because all the mountains feel like they are around Gothics, right?
Hmm.
It's the most beautiful feeling. And my second oh shit was, of course, Saddleback cliffs, the cliffs.
Yeah, it's did you do that in the winter or was that in the summer?
I didn't have I didn't have it in me to do it in the winter.
Okay.
Everyone said you need the axe to do it. I'm like, listen, I'm gonna poke myself with that axe. I don't know how to maneuver the axe yet. So I saved that for the very end. It was the one I did right before my last peak.
Okay, sure.
And at that moment, and I think if you're afraid of heights or free soloing, even if it was like it was like a 5 minute long free solo run.
Yeah.
It's saved for the end because you do change, like your comfort level does change. So by the time we got to Saddleback, I just did it. Unfortunately I did it with black flies, so they made it very annoying because I wanted to, hit them and kill
Those
them.
pesky black flies.
So annoying. So don't do it in May or early June if you can. But it wasn't as scary as it would have been if I had pushed myself to go earlier. And so I think the lesson in that is, when you create the list of what is a good journey for you, for your comfort level, don't compromise because it's not matching someone's schedule. Find someone else. Like I had someone that could go to me, and someone else was pushing me to go to a much harder one way early in my journey. I resisted that. I'm really glad I resisted that because your experience is not the same. If you go at the right time and you're ready to enjoy it instead of being full of fear and negativity, it's a whole different hike.
Certainly is. And there's definitely some mountains that are just better served later on when you do really, like you're saying, you get it, you understand it more, you have a little more experience under your belt, climbing or just being out there and understanding, the terrain and everything. I highly agree. I very strongly agree with what you're saying with holding off on some certain ranges or certain peaks for that exact reason.
I didn't expect to be this eventful. I thought it was just climbing mountain after mountain after mountain and crossing them off.
Sure.
I didn't expect for them to have 46 different personalities and challenges, almost like a video game. I have friends that have done the Colorado big mountains, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they have nothing on the high peaks of the Adirondacks.
Don't tell them
it
that.
is. Oh gosh, it's a whole different beast. And even doing the presidential range, that's a whole different thing with the rocks that just don't end. But it's still not the high peaks. You already know how special it is, those 46 mountains, but they really are in difficulty, and how there's different kinds of difficulties they get exposed to. It really prepares you almost like for world hiking, global hiking.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard that dozens of times from people all over the country who have been here. I've heard that exact thing plenty of times, and it seems to continue to reign true when other people mention it. Now, before we move on, I want to hear more about your day on Allen's. I think what you experienced can be definitely a learning lesson for other people out there. You basically had hypothermia, and you were on Allen of all mountains in the winter. Tell us that story.
Yeah, and I've posted one thing that if your listeners don't know already, like when you go to the Facebook groups, which are so helpful, and you ask certain questions or you share some mistakes or lessons, sometimes you can get some pretty negative feedback. But I never allow that to bother me because I've always learned more than not. And so I shared a lot of that. So when I shared the hypothermia incident, I got some people saying, oh, you shouldn't have done that. I understand that, but this is what happened, and I want to share that with you. So what happened is, first I wanted to tell you why I wanted to do Allen in the winter, right? Which was a friend of mine in November. I did this entire journey in 9 months. So in November, Thanksgiving, I had a friend that wanted to do Allen, and we were going to do hiking together. And the weather was not looking good. One of my what I had in mind about Alan is that no storms. It's already hard as is. It's already long as is. I don't want to have to deal with inclement weather. I don't want to be like lower than my comfort zone, which it was like at that time, like 15 degrees. At the start of the hike, like who knows what's up there, the peak, well, the actual peak temperature. And it was none of that. It was much worse. And there was the possibility of a big storm hitting at some point later in the day. And one thing that James, is that if there's a serious storm hitting, let's say 7 p.m., and you count to be done 5 p.m., that's too close to comfort. That storm could come much earlier.
Certainly.
Right, because it just shifts. So I told her, we shouldn't do that. Please don't go now. And it was her last mountain. She really wanted to be done with a 46er. And I told her, I can't go. I don't feel that I will be safe. I don't think I should go. She did, and she did by herself. And it was a pretty bad situation. It was a pretty bad rescue. It took 3 days for her to be found. And we were not close friends. We were friends from the group. We shared a lot of tips, and we were really looking forward to hiking together. That really devastated me, and I wanted to understand what's up with this mountain. Like, why is it so hard? And I wanted to go back to Alan. I wanted to do it in the winter, and I wanted to do it for her. She couldn't finish it, so there I went, and I thought I had everything in my pack that you could think of. I memorized the route. I had the GPS device. I had my Garmin with SOS, whatever you name it, I had it. But I forgot one thing. I forgot to really think through my nutrition. The night before, I came home from work too late. I had to do all this kid stuff, and I went to bed. I didn't have a heavy dinner. I didn't even think of it. I know that it's what you should have, but it just escaped me. So I went to sleep, didn't eat that much. And then I got up early, knowing that I had to hit the trail super early, didn't eat that much to start. So I started the hike with not that much on me. And then what I threw on my pack, it wasn't enough calories. There was a lot of healthy stuff, which is great, but no peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, no Snickers bars. I didn't have a lot of heavy. So I thought I did, but when I actually summed it up, I had all the packaging later because I wanted to understand what happened, and I summed all it up, and it wasn't even 1,000. And that's not okay. So what people need to understand is that the calories that you burn in the winter, it's not the calories you burn in the summer. Just standing there in the cold, in the super, super cold, you're burning calories. So you need to imagine like your body is a furnace, your core is a furnace, and you need to keep throwing wood in that core so you can stay warm. So if you run out of fuel, you freeze. So I only felt that I was eating everything I had. So I was eating, but I wasn't realizing those things that I was eating were not enough calories. When I got to that climb of Allen, which is super hard. Do you remember that climb? Had you ever done that climb in the winter?
I haven't done it in the winter, but yeah, I've been up there and I remember it very well. Yeah.
Dude, that's steep in the winter. So you have your snowshoes, like you crunch, like very slowly because it's so steep.
Mm-hmm.
With your poles, trying to, you don't want to go like 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. You want to keep the poles going forward. And when I get up there, I'm already feeling that I'm at my limit. Then I sit down and I have my soup, which is usually has pasta, it has protein. That one I brought only had veggies. It was a veggie broth. So not helping. It was almost no calories. I have the broth, and then my friends have like their sandwiches, and then we start going down, and then I butt slide down. My shirt, my undershirt, my underlayer kind of opens up a little bit. It gets a lot of snow in it, and my temperature just drops. So I was already feeling my temperature dropping just out of being out of fuel. Then the temperature drops. By halfway through, I feel really weird. Like I can't really think straight anymore. My friends are asking me questions. And I think I'm talking, but I'm not really talking. I'm not saying the things that I think I'm saying. I know I'm wet. I know I'm freezing, and I still can get